My goodness gracious me, what a model. I am going to be looking into the report from the Integrity Commission, but not the promised. Look into how Andrew made his fortune. Yes, I promised you that I would come and tell you how he made all those millions. And we should all sit down and take notes. No, not that this time. Instead, I'm looking into more topical, because it came in the news. CVM, I believe, brought the story about Positive Jamaica Foundation. And the allegation made in the Integrity Commission report by the investigator that Holness used funding from the foundation to enrich himself. Basically, that is the long and short of what he was saying. He was attempting to establish in this report that Andrew Holness used monies from the foundation, which is intended for charities, to buy bonds in his name, and by that means to enrich himself illicitly. So I do believe that this was what he was hoping to establish. The question is, why is it that he did not recommend the Prime Minister for illicit enrichment concerning these bonds? If that is the case, I suggest to you that you hold on to your horses, because we are going to be looking at the facts and the evidence, not just reading from his conclusions. We'll be going back into the report to see the facts from which he drew his conclusion and see if those facts measures up to his conclusion. What you say? You agree? Great, great, great. You're wonderful, you're wonderful. But before I go on, please remember to give the video a like, right? Give it a thumbs up. Share the video, because CVM has a big audience, and a lot of persons in Jamaica who watch local TV would have heard them say so. So you need to get that message out. I'm going to try and make it as short as possible, because some people turn off when they see the long thing. Mind you, when they start to listen, them gone. So the first thing I'm going to ask is that you share it, especially to persons whom you heard talking about the topic. They would need to hear the other side of the story based on facts and not conclusions of the investigator. If you're here with me for the first time, welcome. Welcome to Jamaica 411. So happy to have you. To my subscribers, all 10,000 plus of you, and my regular viewers, welcome back. I also appreciate you greatly, because I know you're very faithful and you like to comment too. So please, everyone, leave your comments. I want to hear what you think about what I am about to bust out and give you. So now that I've completed my customary welcome, although I changed it up a little, we are now going to get down to the business of the mystery of Positive Jamaica Foundation. So let us now get down to the real meat of it. We are now going to be doing our investigations, our analysis of the findings of the Director of Investigations, Mr. Kevin Stevenson, but we are going to begin with investment in bond. That is what we'll be looking at today, the investment in bond. It says the evidence from National Commercial Bank Capital Market by way of statement dated April 25, 2024, which is this year, indicates that Mr. Holness acquired an NFE South Power 11% 2039 bond on September 2, 2019. Let us make notes of those dates. At a cost of $94,000 US. Mr. Holness was asked to indicate to the commission the source of funding. Remember, now they are investigating us, so they have to check that out. For the placement of the referenced bond, an explanation was provided to the commission by way of letter dated September 23, 2020. The relevant portion of the reference letter is provided below. So Mr. Holness' response is this. During 2019, I encashed the total balance accrued to my U.S. repo account generated from interest payment from bonds at Stocks and Securities Limited, SSL, along with drawing down on my bank balances, US and Jamaican dollars, to make an investment of $94,000 in corporate bonds through NCB Capital Market. You hear Holness is acknowledging that it's $94,000, right? My source of cash or income are detailed in attachments to my 2019 report entitled Net Worth Analysis or Sources and Use and Cash or Statement of Affairs 2019. For completeness, an excerpt is included here from Net Worth Analysis 2018-2019 Statement of Affairs Notes 2. And in that statement that he had submitted at the time, it says, at year-end 2019, bank balances declined by 50% or 10 million. Substantial cash outlay was used to liquidate outstanding balance on construction liabilities of 18 million and the purchase corporate bonds, I suppose that means, and to purchase corporate bonds for $94,000, which it says here at the time was 12 million Jamaican dollars. That's what he said. So the Director of Investigation says, consequent on Mr. Holness's explanation above, the Director of Investigation examined the relevant bank statements which were obtained from the financial institutions mentioned in Mr. Holness's letter to the Commission. The DI's findings are outlined below. So this is what he found. When asked about the source of funding for the reference bond, the duly authorized officer at the National Commercial Bank Capital Market initially indicated that it was undetermined and was currently being investigated, meaning to say they're not too sure. Way back in 2019, we have to go check it out to see where where the money was coming from. They later wrote back to give the information about the account. It says here at 5.8.78, the evidence subsequently obtained from the duly authorized officer at the National Commercial Bank Capital Market indicates that on September 4 and 5, 2019, a total of $204,000 was received by that entity to establish an NFE 11% 2036 bond with 94,000 units and NFE 8.25% 2034 bond with 110 units. The details are as follows. Now I should explain that the bond is that 11% is the amount of money you would receive in they call it coupon every year. That 11% is 11% interest that you would be receiving when you buy these bonds in US dollars. Can you imagine? I would have jumped on that too if I had money. And the other one was 8.25%. The 2034, that is the year when it would be mature, meaning to say that's when they would, I guess, pay you back the money that they had taken from you. This is a sort of way of sweetening the thing so that people will come in and buy these bonds. It's a sort of a loan kind of to the persons who are selling it. So they said they received $204,000 to buy bonds. Now, this is the source of the funding. According to them, the source of funding for the NCB Capital Market US dollar bonds in 2019. So they're saying that on September 4 in 2019, they received $100,000 from a NCB account in the name of Positive Jamaica Foundation. This is a foundation that then claiming Andrew took their money, buy bonds for himself to enrich himself, right? As part of the illicit enrichment investigation. So they said no. So $100,000 came out of the NCB account for Positive Jamaica Foundation via NCB link. So he would have transferred that money to the capital market. The following day, September 5, NCB Capital Market received three payments into the accounts. Two of them from SSL. And I want you to notice the one for $42,000. That's the one to pay attention to. And one of them was from BNS. When you add that up, you get the 204,000 US. So now we know what the source of that money was, which purchased the bond. Legitimate, coming from bank accounts. All right. Now listen to what the Director of Investigation said below. The evidence shows, what I'm saying? The evidence shows, which means the documented information shows that the NFE 11% 2036 bond was established in Mr. Holness's name, and the NFE 8.25% 2034 bond in the name of Positive Jamaica Foundation. You heard that? Let me read it for you again. The evidence shows that this $204,000 that was received to buy the bonds, this is how it was supposed to have been distributed. For the 11% bond, it was supposed to have gone to the account of Mr. Holness' name, in his name. So I'm supposed to have bought the bond in his name, right? And for the 8.25% bond, they were supposed to have purchased that in the name of Positive Jamaica Foundation. And we have established that $100,000 was coming from their account. So what we have here is the Director of Investigation saying, I accept that $204,000 are legitimate money coming from accounts. That's the source. Not coming from anywhere else, not coming from taxpayers' money. It's coming from bank accounts, savings. By this statement, he's accepting that some of that $204,000 was supposed to have been in the account for Mr. Holness and some for Positive Jamaica. That is what he's saying the evidence shows. That the intention of Holness when he transferred this money to the NCB capital market was to have some of that money invested in bonds, the 11% bond for himself, and the charity's money would have been invested in the 8.25% bond. That's what the evidence shows. So you recall now from the schedule before, you saw where Positive contributed $100,000, but what you did not see was for the other three contributions to the purchasing of the bonds. You didn't see, even though you saw where the money was coming from, you didn't see from whose account. So we know that Positive contributed $100,000. We are left to assume that the rest came from Holness. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. As you can see from the schedule that Holness eventually supplied the Integrity Commission, that two of the transactions belong to him, coming from his accounts. The one that was coming from BNS, the $31,000, and the $30,000 that was coming from SSL. Those came out of his accounts. So his contribution was supposed to have been $61,000, right? And the $42,000 I told you to pay attention to, that was actually coming out of the account of Positive Jamaica Foundation from SSL, and the other $100,000 from Positive Jamaica SSL. So what should have happened was that $60,000 was supposed to have been used to buy the 11% bond for Holness, and $142,000 used to buy the bonds for Positive Jamaica. Was that what happened? No. But before I move along, let me bring it to your attention. I want you to pay close attention to show that there are two separate accounts. It says the total amount of $61,000 was to be used to settle the NFE 11% 2036 bond purchase, Andrew Holness, in the name of in the name of Andrew Holness. And you see the account number 750768 and 142,000 for NFE 8.25% 2034 bond purchase for Positive Jamaica Limited, and you see the account number 6475842 separate accounts. Now they are only discovering this misapplication of the funding in June of 2024, just the other day. All the while Andrew was declaring that he owns 94,000 US dollars of those shares, and that the Positive Jamaica then would have owed 110,000. You follow me? That would bring the total to 204,000. But let us continue. Because the question which now arises is, did Andrew Holness, at the time he was a director in Positive Jamaica Foundation, did he deliberately transfer monies from the account of Positive Jamaica in order to buy bonds for himself, to add to the 60,000 and buy bonds for himself? Was that what happened? Well, you heard the director of investigation said that some of the money was supposed to have bought shares for the bonds for Holness, and some was to buy the bonds for the foundation. So he has established that he has found evidence to that effect. So no, he did not transfer money from Positive Jamaica Foundation bank account to the NCB capital market in order for his own benefit. Now, since the inception, since these bonds were bought, we're going to check to see now what happened. Now, when the NCB capital market and Holness were asked about the source of income, there was a discrepancy between what Holness said it was, by his recollection, and what the NCB capital market said. So the officers of the capital market were summoned to appear before the director of investigation to answer fulsome questions. One of the officers replied by August 22, this is 2024 we're talking about, right? And this is what he said by way of clarity. In respect of question that the IC asked, the director of investigation asked, the question was, all payments made to the bondholder, which is Holness, inclusive of Positive Jamaica Foundation, I state as follows. Based on the dividend mandate, both Andrew Holness plus Positive Jamaica Foundation interest payments were made to Mr. Holness accounts initially, which totaled US $20,000. $20,000 US, he's saying. When the dividend was paid out, it was paid out into Mr. Holness's accounts, both for the dividend for him and the dividend for Positive. That amount was $20,000, and it was paid from October 2019 until September 22, 2020. That's what they were doing. But how did they come to do so? Well, let's read on and let's see if we can discover. So at B, it says the bond was called, and on September 22, 2020, the principal payments plus interest of $208,000 was credited to Mr. Holness's account, $95,880 plus $112,200. You see that $95,880? They are saying that is attributed to Mr. Holness, and $112,000 is attributed to Positive. And they had made the payments to Mr. Holness's account. That means to say none of the payments went to the account of Positive. The question is, how did they come to make that decision? Let's continue. It says here that the total interest paid was $228,000, and that must be a mistake. So it must be the interest and the principal that was paid back was $228,000. So in 1 year, they made $24,000 in interest. Oh, now at C it says following email correspondence between so-and-so and Mr. Holness on October 21, 2020. You hear that? So let me explain. When they said that the bonds were called, it means that the company that issued it had recalled them. So they bought it back from the persons who they had sold it to. And what they had done is replaced it with a lower interest. This one is 11%. They replaced it with an interest-bearing bond of, I think it was 6.25%. So on September 22nd now, when they received the money, they had credited the $228,000 that they received from the company, NFE. They sent that, but they deposited into Holness's account. Now, at sea it says that there was a correspondence between Holness and somebody in the bank on the October 21. So nearly a month later, they discovered the mistake and adjustments were made to the account on October 26, 5 days later. What was the adjustment? $121,000 was transferred from Holness's account to Positive Jamaica Foundation. Did you notice the date? These transactions took place in 2020, long before anybody was investigating anything. So NCB have been messing up their account from day one, literally, where they have two separate accounts for Holness and Positive. For some reason, they made a mistake and lodged all the money into Holness's account when the bond was called, and they received the money, they put it in a Holness account. So the mistake was found out. I believe it was Holness who sent them an email, to alert them to the fact that Positive is supposed to receive some money. Evidently, he must have seen the statement and him get all of it. So they in turn made an adjustment on the 26th of October in 2020. So here is evidence that Holness had pointed out to NCB Capital Market in 2020 that the proceeds from the recall of the bond, that $228,000, some of it was supposed to have gone to Positive Jamaica. That is the evidence that he never intended any of that money from Positive Jamaica to have gone to his benefit. So the banking official further said, right, that the said email correspondence is attached and marked as CW5. So he provided the email. And he went on to say that Positive Jamaica Foundation and the account number is separate and apart from Holness's account number. It's two separate accounts. Therefore, how did they come to lump the two together and put in Andrew Holness's account? It could only be by instruction by the agreement, or he had given them instruction to that effect. And what the evidence is showing, that no such thing occurred. Right? The instructions that they got was from the time when the error was made, and they were told by email an error was made, and they made the adjustment. And they provided the email as evidence. The banking officer said, on June 28, 2024, so just the other day, the current NFE bond was sold now on Imperium. So they had a new account now called Imperium. And an amount of US $39,000 was transferred to PJF. That is the Positive Jamaica Foundation. An additional $4,000 is now to be transferred to Positive Jamaica pending approval from my manager and then the client, Mr. Holness. So what they are saying is they have gone and made further adjustments because Holness write to them when the DI, the director of investigation, wrote to him asking about the source of income. At that time, he realized only $61,000 he contributed. So they had a meeting and him tell them, say, no, man, no, so it's supposed to go. And they are saying that is the agreement you signed. And him said, no, the $142,000 supposed to be there. So what they have done now is corrected that by doing the calculation over again and paying the money over to Positive Jamaica that would have been, attributed to Holness and to Imperium. That's basically was what happened. But that, of course, did not suit Mr. Kevon Stevenson, never suited him at all. Because in as much as Holness is saying 5 years later that it was a mistake, that what he ought to have was $61,000 worth of bonds. That's what he was saying, right? So this is what Mr. Kevon Stevenson, who is the Director of Investigation, said. The evidence indicates, so I'm seeing it, and he's satisfied that it did happen. The evidence indicates that on October 21, 2020, adjustments were made to Mr. Holness's account on the basis that funds belonging to Positive Jamaica Foundation were erroneously deposited in said account. This transaction was reversed on October 26, 2020. There was no indication at this or any other stage that the $94,000 bond was incorrect and should instead be $61,000 prior to the DI's inquiries in June 2024. What is he saying? All the time in his 2020 declaration, Andrew Holness had declared that he had these NFE bonds were $94,000 worth of these bonds he said he had. In everything, even when he was speaking to the DI about the source of fund, he referred to the $94,000, right? It wasn't until when Andrew started to, and the bank now, because they couldn't find the source of income, so they had to go back and get the information from the institutions, the commercial institutions, the banks and SSL, and they found it. And then when them found it now, at that time, Andrew Holness realized that actually $61,000 that he had contributed out of that $204,000 that went to the capital market at that time. So all the while, even though he signed the bond, and said, and $94,000 of him and $110,000 belong to the Positive Jamaica. He said, no, a mistake, a 61,000 I really mind for true. And Mr. Stevenson, the investigator, said, hey, nobody try me with that one then. I not buy that. But guess what is the problem? You know what the problem is? Yes. Andrew Holness did sign the bond that says that $94,000 is to be accredited to his account and the rest to the foundation. But for Mr. Stevenson to prove his case, he would need a schedule, because he said there was a schedule, him saying signed the bond and there was a schedule as to how the money should be allocated. The bond should be allocated. The 11% for him, 94,000 of it, and the 8.25 to the foundation. The problem was he could not find, and NCB could not provide him with any documentation, any schedule where Andrew Holness actually said in the form of instructions to NCB Capital Market that I sent you $204,000. He needed to have Andrew Holness write that $61,000 from my account, $142,000 from the foundation's account. This is how I want you to distribute it. I want you to take $32,000 from the foundation's account, and with my $61,000, I instruct you to purchase $94,000 US dollars of the NFE 11% bond. That is what is missing. That is not what they have on record. All they have is a schedule where he says 94,000 units is to be for my account and 110,000 units for the account of Positive Jamaica. What is missing from this report is the price per bond. Was it $1? Was it $1 US per bond? Was that how it was sold? So that is missing. So we don't know what the units stand for, but they have it as 94,000 US dollars. We're assuming, therefore, that it was $1 for each of those bond instruments. I don't know if that is how they term it, right? So Mr. Stevenson was left with a problem. He cannot go into court and win an illicit enrichment because he does not have proof of the intent of Holness to rob Positive Jamaica. What he has, to the contrary, is evidence by email correspondence that was provided by the bank, where Holness had actually indicated that they had made a mistake and that the money that they put in my account, somewhere it's supposed to go to the Positive Jamaica. You follow? By the way, you like up the video. Remember to like up the video, no man. Like up the video, you're getting some good piece of information here. So he could not prove, and I'm sure you remember that when they sent in the annual report this year, I think it was May, that the judge had said, Justice Panton, the chairman, he had said that they were going to deal with the Holness, matter of Holness's statutory declarations. You know what I took that to mean? This thing has been going on for 2 years. And obviously, they must have asked, the commissioners are responsible, they must have asked for update. And if Stevenson could have brought some information to show them that, all right, I have this information, all of these papers that I gathered up, the account information from all the institutions and all the witness statements, and if he could have shown them that he had a viable case, that's something that he could win, they would have allowed the investigation to go on. I put it to you that he must have put the same arguments that he's putting here in this report, that Andrew Holness all this time was receiving payments on the 94,000, had declared it, the 94,000 in his declarations. And even when I was bringing up the argument about the proof of income, he still mentioned that is 94,000 that he had. So he knew, and he would have said that to the commissioners. This is evidence that he knew, and therefore he must have transferred this money to his account in order to benefit from it illicitly. And they would have said to him, especially them judges, yeah, the judge have use now, right? The judges would have said to him, yeah, but do you have evidence that he had actually instructed NCB that the money that they received from Positive Jamaica was supposed to have gone to buy the shares for 94,000? Do you have that? The judge will say that. Once you don't have that instruction, and already NCB said them don't take instruction over phone. Everything has to be in writing. Them have a bond form, agreement form that you have to write when you want any changes. And they did not have anything on the books to say that that was what happened. That Holness instructed them to, first of all, when they sell all those bonds, when it was called the first time, they had nothing on record to say that Holness instructed them to put the money in his account. To the contrary, they have on record where Holness told them, no, it's not supposed to be from my account. Put the foundation money in the foundation account. That's what they had. So the judges will say to him, but you can't carry this to court because you can't prove that he gave them any such instruction. Even though he signed the bond agreement that is 94,000, he never said that they were to take the money out of the foundation, money where him send come give them. Then he never said that. And once you don't have that evidence, then his argument that it was a mistake was always going to win in court. That, I'm sure, is what the commissioners would have told him. But for some reason, Mr. Kevon Stevenson, the investigator, believes what he believes, because here he is writing in his conclusion. The full proceeds of the 94,000 US dollar bond, inclusive of the 32,000, which is now being said to belong to Positive Jamaica Foundation. So him not believe it. Even though it coming from the people's account, him not believe it. Were transferred to Imperium and reinvested by that entity. So after they sold the proceeds, it went into Imperium's account, which of course is Andrew Holness, and the money was then reinvested. This is what he's arguing. In other words, he says, the portion allegedly belonging to Positive Jamaica Foundation formed part of Imperium's assets for over 3 years and was appropriated by that entity as it deemed appropriated. The funds were only remitted to Positive Jamaica Foundation after inquiries were made by the DI, which was in June. So what he's saying is, all this while, Andrew Holness was treating this $94,000 as if it was his. And that $94,000 included $32,000 from the foundation. That money, he said, when it was sold, the bond was sold, that $32,000 belonging to the Positive Jamaica was put in Imperium's account. And Andrew Holness owns that. And he's saying they were profiting from it. Holness was profiting from it for 3 years. And it's only when them find out now, because I was asking questions, that them say it was a mistake. Is that him a say, him don't believe it. So here's what he said further. The foregoing raises questions as to whether Mr. Holness's alleged use of funds belonging to a charitable foundation to partially fund the acquisition of a personal asset amounts to misappropriation. The DI finds that in the circumstances that an investigation by the Financial Investigation Division, hereinafter referred to as the FID, is warranted. So he's recommended that this matter should pass to the FID. I don't know what the FID going to do that him couldn't do, because the FID is going to ask the bank the very same questions, and the bank is going to produce the very same documents that was sent to the Integrity Commission, and there would have been no evidence to show that Holness instructed them that they must take this amount of money out of the foundation and buy the bonds for him. That is what they need, and that is what they don't have. You see, the argument is very simple. There were two different classes of bonds. Money was brought in to buy the 11% bond for Holness, and money was brought in to buy the 8.25% bond for the Positive Jamaica. When NCB drafted that bond agreement, and the instruction was that $94,000 was to be for Holness, it was they who went into the Positive Jamaica, because $61,000 is in Holness's account and $142,000 is in Positive account. So it must have been they who made the decision to go take the money out of Positive and put it with Holness's $61,000 to make up the $94,000, rather than go tell the client, but all you have in your account is $61,000. They went and take the money out, and they have no record on file to say that it was Holness who told them to do so. That's my point. So they made that decision for their excellent client. That was an assumption they made, that I must say that he mean. And then later on now, him think that him have the 94,000, him think that him contribute 94,000. Later on him find out that he didn't, and it has to be reversed, and it was reversed. So I don't know how it is that Mr. Stevenson expects to prove his case. I don't see how. Because for him to be saying that the money was used and therefore he was attempting to illicitly enrich himself, he has to show intent. How am I going to show that when he has no documented proof that NCB Capital Market was given any such instructions from their clients? So the only conclusion that one can come to is that it's a mistake. First of all, by the bank in the application of the funds to the accounts, and by Holness in thinking that somehow his $61,000 could have bought him 94,000 units of these bonds. Given the evidence provided by the Integrity Commission, what other conclusions could we possibly come to? Anyway, folks, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for being so patient and listening to me. Remember to like up the video, share, subscribe, and leave your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take good care of yourselves and walk good.